In this video, I'm going to talk about the one change I made that took me from getting very mediocre results from pickup, from game, where I was going to bars, I was going to clubs, and every once in a while I would meet a girl who seemed to be really into me, and I would end up hooking up or, start dating a girl. But it was wildly inconsistent. It was random. And I would have nights where nothing would happen, and then I would have good nights, and it was frustrating because it just felt like a feast or famine kind of situation. But I made one change that I stumbled onto completely randomly. But I made one change that when I went through this, my results became far more consistent and I had a lot more fun going out. And this is important because when it comes to attracting women, one of the biggest obstacles is that people are not enjoying it, right? That people take it way too seriously. It feels like a chore. They're not able to have fun. But when you do this, it will start to become enjoyable. It will even become addictive. It can literally be so fun that it's addictive. That is the power of this one principle. And this is based on neuroscience. This is based on a lot of scientific research, especially by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, but we'll talk about that research in later in the video. The point is, this will change your life if you implement it, but it's very easy to let your ego get in the way of this concept because it requires you to do things that on some level you're not going to want to do, that you're going to have resistance to doing. But trust me, if you try this, if you do this for, let's say, a month consistently, you will be getting far better results from pickup. You'll be getting more numbers, more makeouts, more pulls, more whatever it is that you want. You'll be getting a lot more of it. And that is, it's very simple, minimize time between interactions. This might be something you're familiar with. You may have heard of it before and be like, oh, I already heard of it, click off. But are you doing it? Are you doing it? Chances are you're not. 95% of guys who know about pickup will not do this. They are far too egotistical when it comes to looking cool, looking good. So what they do is they walk around the venue and they scan, they value leech, they scan where is the perfect girl to approach? Where is that one girl that I'll really like? And not only that, where's the girl that is by herself, that clearly wants to be approached, that is checking me out before I approach her, that has all these checklists, doesn't look too bitchy, she isn't too hot, but she's hot enough, etc., etc., etc. And they're looking for reasons not to approach. The brakes are on in their mind, right? It's not on the gas, it's on the brakes. They're defensive, they're in self-protection. And what this leads to is walking around, getting more and more over-analytical and more self-judgmental, and it becomes a downward spiral. Your mood goes down and down. The longer you go without taking action, the more you hesitate. Subconsciously, you know you're being hesitant. You know you're in self-protection. Even if you're making excuses consciously, it doesn't matter. And what eventually happens is you get more stressed, more anxious, and it becomes increasingly difficult to approach anyone. So the way around this is to realize that you have to make a shift, almost like gears in a car. You have to make a shift from two different actual parts of your brain being active, right? This is where we get into the neuroscience. So when you're not in a flow state, when you're stressed, what happens is the part of your brain that is active is the slower, more logical part of your brain that is sometimes referred to as the inner Woody Allen. So it's the part of your brain that's looking for reasons not to take action is more active. The part of your brain that is not creative is more active, that is not funny, that is not charismatic. That's the part that's active. And so that part of your brain is doing its best to protect you from risk, because on a subconscious level, we associate strangers as a risk. Because back in tribal times, I know this is kind of a meme to people, tribal times. Well, it is true. A lot of people don't understand evolutionary psychology. They haven't read David Buss, and actually learned it. But every behavior we have does come down on some level to evolutionary psychology. And so what we're doing is we're making excuses because on a subconscious level, we think that our head is going to get beaten in by someone if we approach a woman who's not part of our tribe, who's not part of our group, our social circle. So we have this deep fear and we rationalize, oh, she's moving too fast, she's doing this, she's not hot enough, she's too hot. And that part of your brain is going to constrain you more and more. But what you can do to get around this, to break free of this, is to tell yourself, I'm going to approach everyone and anyone, even unattractive women. Now, you don't need to do this permanently. You only do this until that shift is made. So as soon as you get to the point where you see a hot girl, there's no hesitation and you just approach. Then you've gained the ability, right? You've earned the ability to be able to only approach the women you genuinely find attractive. Then it makes sense to do that. But until you reach that point, which you could call the indifference threshold or state or God mode, until you reach the point where you see a girl and it's not like, oh, should I do it? Should I not do it? If you're having those thoughts, you approach anyone, hot or not hot. If she's with friends or not with friends, approach anyone. Don't look for the perfect situation. And a good way to make this tangible, to make this something that you can implement in a very practical way, as opposed to it just being hypothetically, I should approach more, which is kind of too vague. What you can do is, and this is kind of nerdy, but it works, and it's a good crutch that you can use until you get to a point where you consistently are getting into state, where you're consistently getting into social momentum. So what you do is in your head, you just count down from 15 to 0. And before you get to 0, you have to talk to someone. Now, look, if you're in a park where there's not that many people, it could be every minute, right? Or you could just use an actual timer in your phone for every couple minutes if there's less people. But if you're in a bar or you're in a club where there's a lot of people to talk to, every 15 seconds, you just have to say something to someone. Now, it doesn't even have to be a real approach. You could just say, I like your dress, I like your style, I like your hair, or even hello. You could just say that. And that might feel awkward at first, but it's powerful because every time you do something where you felt a little bit of resistance, you're turning off the Woody Allen in your brain and turning on the part of your brain associated with flow states, the part of your brain that is far more creative, far more charismatic, and then always and has an approach mindset. That's actually the scientific term, is approach orientation, funny enough, but it means you're seeking things. You're looking for things that you want as opposed to avoiding things that you don't want. So that is what happens over time. And I know this may sound simple. It might be like, why would that do anything that special? It really works. The only way to get into a flow state is to do things where you are getting out of your comfort zone, where you are taking a risk. That is the only way to get into a flow state. And so it is difficult at first, but as you do it more and more, it starts to become a habit. It starts to feel natural. It starts to get easier. At first, it will be difficult, but this is the fast track, the fastest path to going from someone who's getting no results with women to someone who is having incredible success and has an abundant dating life. This is the key. It is to minimize the time between interactions. That is the one thing you can do that will have the biggest payoff. Now, it's not the whole picture. You also want to push your interactions further over time. You want to make sure that you're not just saying, hi, I like your dress. Hi, I like your dress. Hi, I like your dress. Okay, if that's all you're doing the entire night, at a certain point, that's not going to move you anywhere. But doing that gives you momentum, which will make it that much easier to do a more committed approach over time, right? First, you say, hey, I like your dress. And you're like, okay, I'll say, where are you from? Or what's your name? I'll go a little farther, right? And then you go a little farther. And every time you have that little feeling of hesitation, that knot in your stomach, but you do it anyway, that's when you're making progress and that's when you're getting into state. So if you do that and you talk to someone every 15 seconds, and like I said, you can change this based on how busy the venue you're going to is, but as long as you make the point that you minimize the time between interactions, you will start getting into state, even if you've never been in state before in your life. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, make sure to subscribe. Hit the bell button, because if you don't hit the bell button, you won't be notified when I release a new video. And if you want to work with me personally, click the link below to learn about my different coaching options, including in-person and online coaching, and you can find out if you're a good fit.